This is a great opportunity for me to share some information with everybody, and I hope you'll find it enjoyable, entertaining, and maybe get something out of it in the process. I'm going to share the screen here with my presentation, and we will get started here. There we go. Okay. My talk this evening is going to be on upgrading Marklin locomotives from analog to digital, and I'm going to review a lot of different aspects of it, and I'm going to try and keep it entertaining, as I said. So, without any more fanfare, let me tell you a little bit about me. My heritage is from Germany. My mother was born in Kassel, and I think that's a cool place. I visited there with her after the Marklin Days event in 2005, and as some of you may know, Kassel is the home for Henschel, which is now owned by Bombardier, where they make locomotives. And the two pictures you see there on the left are my first visit there to Bombardier and Bombardier, however you pronounce it, and they had a banner there celebrating the 34,000th locomotive they had just built. And you can see from the picture below that they let me into the factory. They actually even let me take pictures of their construction and repairing locomotives, and they were very, very gracious, and I had a wonderful visit there with my mom. It was really very, very cool. On the other side of the country is my father's side. He's from Nuremberg, which ironically is the home of the DB Museum. So I suppose between Henschel and the DB Museum in Nuremberg, I guess it was only natural that somewhere along the line I was going to get involved with trains to some degree. So that's what I tell everybody. I'm made in America, but exclusively with German parts. So there you have it. One of the other aspects I like about trains, other than repairing them and helping customers get nice models, is I love taking photographs of trains. And these are just some of the pictures that I've taken in the last few years. And here's one that I took in Geppingen at the last Marklin Days event. They brought in the classic 103 on a tour, and it was just magnificent. I stood there on the track waiting for an hour for it to arrive, and it was well worth the wait, I must say. And at the east end of the station, there was this Class 146 commuter train that had just pulled in coming from Stuttgart, and as it was leaving, I thought it'd be kind of cool to just get a picture of them together. So. Again, that's just one of the parts of the hobby that I love so much, but I really do love photography. And here are some of the other photos that I've taken. I take pictures of things other than just trains. So much for that. Very brief history about me and my experience with Marklin. My dad got us our first set when I was about 3 years old. Had an old SK800. And I think everybody at some point has had a 3021, the V200 diesel locomotive, the red and gray version. And in 1985, when Marklin first introduced their digital system, I happened to be on a vacation with my wife in Europe, and we picked up some interesting some of the first digital pieces that Marklin offered, and that's how I got started. And that was before Marklin decided to start marketing digital in the United States. They wanted to keep it in Germany for a while, I guess, just to see how it would take off. So when I bought my stuff in 1985 and I came to the US, nobody knew anything about it. So I worked with Marklin, and I acted as a consultant with them actually before Tom Catherall. Went around the country with them for a couple of years trying to educate people and show people the benefits of digital. And I wrote some software, some of you may know. And I've been a dealer for Marklin for the last, pretty much the last 30 years. This is something I do in my retirement. I do it for fun. And a lot of people say, why do you do all this? And the answer is simply because I enjoy it so much. I enjoy the trains, the real ones, the models. I enjoy working with people, and it's just very fulfilling for me. Okay, today's agenda. I'm going to go over some different aspects of the process for upgrading Marklin analog locomotives. We're going to go we're going to review the different types of motor kits that Marklin offers to take you from analog to digital operation. We're going to go over the different decoders that are available from both Marklin and ESU. Those are the two brands that I think are really the best that are out there. And we'll go over in detail for some of these decoders. I'm going to review some of the parts that one would typically use that are all readily available for upgrading locomotives. And lastly, I'll show you some of the tools that I use that I found very helpful in the process. And lastly, I'm going to very briefly go over some of the additional resources that are available for people if they need more information. So, there are several different types of analog motors. There are the type with flat armatures, and there are two varieties of those. The picture I have up here is what we call a large flat armature, and you can see the flat surface there. And there's also a small flat armature motor. It too has a flat surface here. You can see that this wound field coil has a larger opening and larger size than the smaller one here. And what these two have in common, other than they have flat armatures, is they have the classic or the historic, everyone look at a combination or set of brushes, the carbon or graphite brush and the copper mesh that's wound up in a little cylinder there. And these brushes go into the side of the motor shield, and they press against the flat side here of the armature that you can see. Then you have what's called the round armature, and I have here's the gear side, and on the other side it's a drum, if you will. It's a round cylinder, and this is characterized by having the rectangular brushes. So it's very easy. A lot of times people say, well, I don't know what kind of motor kit I need to convert. And I say, well, what kind of motor do you have? And I get an I don't know. I said, well, take a look. Do you have round brushes? Okay, if you have round brushes, you'd have a large or a flat armature, and we can go into more detail there. But if you have one that has rectangular brushes, then you know that you have a round armature. One of the interesting features of the fact that you have a large and a small version of the flat armature variety is the fact that the motor kits, which we will get into momentarily, for these flat armature motors actually there's two different varieties when you get to the large one. Okay, the large armature motors have either a 7-tooth or an 8-tooth gear. Okay, and they also have what I call, if I'll ask you to draw your attention here to the upper right, they also have two different types of motor shields. There's what I call a flat one, and I call this one a round one because it's got a rounded edge on it. And snagged this picture off of one of the Marklin digital newsletters that Tom Catherall put together a long time ago, and it actually shows, this is brush plate number 1, that's what I call the flat one. Here's a column for brush plate number 2, which I call the round one, and then there's 7-tooth armature and 8-tooth armature, and they come in different combinations. Between 2 armatures and 2 motor shields, you can have 4 possible combinations. And this table here just shows you, depending on which locomotive you're trying to upgrade, which motor shield or brush plate and which armature you would want to use. And if you're kind of clever, you'll realize that, well, if the kit comes with 2 armatures and 2 motor shields, conceivably you could put together you could upgrade 2 different locomotives for the price of 1. All you would need is 1 extra magnet, and those are available separately. Okay, here we go. These are the different types of motor kits that Marklin offers for upgrading from analog to digital. By definition, I suppose a true digital motor is one with a permanent magnet, but you can have digital without that. Marklin's first models just had a wound field coil. And for those people who want to upgrade their locomotive without going to the trouble to replace the motor, Marklin introduced, I believe it was last year, the 60906 decoder. It's pictured here in the upper right. The beauty of this decoder is, as I just said, you don't have to replace the motor. All you do is replace the reversing unit, be it a mechanical reversing unit or the electronic reversing unit. You just replace that with the decoder, and you're done. And the decoder even offers MFX capabilities. In other words, you put it right on the track and it gets automatically recognized. This is really great for your smaller locomotives, your less expensive locomotives, the ones you don't want to invest a whole lot of money, because this decoder is only about $39, and that's a very inexpensive way to upgrade your analog locomotive. The downside is that it's not going to run a whole lot better. It's still going to, you're not going to have the smooth acceleration and deceleration you get with the permanent magnet motors, because there's no feedback. But it's still, again, it's a very reasonably priced decoder, and it has extra functions that you can access if you want to access smoke or put in a cab light or anything else. You do have lots of extra functions. So for the money, it's really a very, very nice alternative. The next item down here on the list is the 60760. This is a motor kit, as you see here on the right, that includes the armature, the permanent magnet, the motor shield, and it also comes with Marklin's FX decoder. That came out quite a while ago, I think, probably about 15, 20 years ago. I think I have that on the next slide. And the beauty of this combination is if you have a drum or round armature motor, okay, you get both the motor kit and the decoder, again, for a very reasonable price. In this case, it's under $50, and you can upgrade your locomotive very reasonably priced there. You get a 5-pole armature, which means it's going to run a lot smoother. You have a digital decoder in the permanent magnet motor, which means you can define your acceleration and deceleration for smooth operation, constant speed up and down inclines. Very, very reasonably priced way, an easy way to upgrade your locomotives. But again, there's only for those locomotives that come with the round armature. If you want to go the next step here, we have the 60943 motor kit, and you have the 60944. The 60943 is for the small flat armature motors that you saw on the previous screen, and the 60944 is for the large flat armature. And as I alluded to earlier, it comes with 2 motor shields, 7 and an 8-tooth armature, both 5-pole, and the permanent magnet. And down here in the lower corner, there is one series of locomotives that's a little bit different than everything else Marklin makes. The old BR01 locomotives, their motor shield, so it's the same magnet as the large flat armatures take, and the same type of armature, but it has a uniquely styled motor shield. And I have the part number here if you want. That's the part number you need to ask for. And it's the whole thing. It's the armature, magnet, and the motor shield. And that works very nicely in the older BR1 locomotives. A very brief history here of how we got to where we are today. Marklin came out with their first C80 decoders in 1985, had 80 addresses, and you can operate the lights, and that's it. A few years after that, they came out with the Delta decoders, less expensive. Marklin decided that they wanted to put decoders in just about every locomotive that they made, so that in the future, as digital caught on, people wouldn't have to go and upgrade or change change motors and decoders. The advantage to that is it didn't really add much to the cost of the locomotive, but as you can see here from the 4 dip switches, you only have 15 different addresses possible, which for most people, on most layouts, that probably would be enough. The downside is that still doesn't run a whole lot better than the analog locomotives, because you're still using a wound field coil. You don't have 5-pole motors, permanent magnet type of operation. So about the same time as they came out with the Delta decoder, that's when Marklin introduced their 5-pole motor with a permanent magnet, extra functions, so you could have up to 4 functions. And the beauty of this was there were 2 little potentiometers, these little items here that on the right side of the dip switches where you would use a little screwdriver. The kits used to come with a little plastic screwdriver about 2 inches long, which you could use to raise and lower the top speed as well as the acceleration deceleration rate, which gave you some control over how your locomotive operated. Later on, again, this was on a previous slide, those FX decoders, the 60760s, which were designed to go in the round armature motors. Again, very inexpensive. I have a picture of it over here somewhere. There it is. And it was a nice alternative to the more expensive decoders that Marklin was offering at the time, especially those with sound and such. Again, you can buy the whole kit with the decoder for under $50. The only downside is that you're limited to 255 addresses, no MFX. But again, it's still very affordable and very easy to use. And if you read the fine print somewhere, you'll find there's actually and you have to take the heat shrink tubing off of it, but you can actually add an extra function for, say, a cab light or telex or something like that to your locomotive if you want. I don't know if it's that's something that's in the instructions, but I can certainly help you with that if you need. And lastly, the current status of decoders, the MFX and the MFX Plus locomotives. The MFX decoders were first introduced with the central station and the mobile station, and offered up to 16 different functions and an infinite number of addresses. And the MFX Plus decoders, which were introduced according to what I have there, 2013, they offer extra functions, up to 32 different functions, which is great if you want a whole variety of different sounds and bells and whistles and station announcements. And it's really nice to have all those functions available, more than most people would need, I would imagine. Okay, a brief review here of the different decoders that Marklin and ESU offer. I think, as I said earlier, I think Marklin and ESU make the best decoders around. I'm partial to ESU because I find that it's a more open system, but there's nothing wrong with Marklin decoders. They're very reliable and very easy to install. The Marklin kits, as you see here, they all come with adapter plates. We'll start over here on the left side. These are for your non-sound decoders, and I have the part numbers here. They come in different configurations. This one is a 21-pin decoder. It comes with an adapter plate. Comes with a little mounting plate here, and the whole board here is designed to snap in exactly where the original, be it reversing unit, mechanical or electronic reversing, was. If you had a 6080 decoder, a 6090 or 60901, they all have the same footprint, and it matches this plate here exactly. So you really don't have to worry about is this going to fit when I'm all done. You're pretty much guaranteed that it's going to fit when you put it all together. Then we have the Marklin sound decoders. You see they come with two different speakers. One of those two is designed to fit in just about any locomotive you would have. And again, with the 21-pin decoder, the sound decoders are obviously going to be a little bit larger than the non-sound decoders. But again, it's all designed to fit in just about any locomotive you would want. Over here in the on this slide over here, the 60978 for diesel and the 60979 for electric locomotives. This is for the locomotives that, how can I put it, I'd say more popularly priced locomotives, the ones with the can motors, the Cardan shafts. If you've ever opened one up just to take a look at it, you'll see the motor is and the decoder are on a plate with a little different shape than the analog locomotives. And if you wanted to convert these to sound, it's very simple. There's two places here where the motor attaches. There's another couple of places where the hot wire from the pickup shoe and the ground get attached. You just disconnect those. You drop this plate in. You put the decoder, snap the decoder on. The speaker goes underneath, and you're in business. A very easy and clean way to upgrade your non-sound decoders to sound. Marklin also introduced, I believe it was just this last year, a power pack. You can see little capacitors here. And what these do, just think of it as a battery. So if you have track that's a little dirty, and you find that the sound keeps cutting off and on, perhaps, this is one way to prevent that from happening. And you wire up one of these power packs to any of the decoders you see here on the left, and that'll keep your train running if it hits a patch of dirty track. On the bottom part of the screen here, we have the ESU selection of current decoders that are available. They have the LokPilot HO. These are the non-sound decoders. Again, they come in a 21-pin variety, similar to all the Marklin decoders you see above. And they also have wired connections. This one here has an 8-pin NEM compatible plug for Marklin. Well, Marklin doesn't use 8-pin sockets, but Roku and a lot of other manufacturers do. And this has an 8-pin plug at the end of it. Makes it very easy to just snap it in and you're done. No wiring, no soldering, nothing. ESU also makes an FX, or a function decoder, that has many different functions available. If you just want to add functions to whatever, a car for lights, or cab lights, or smoke, or anything else. Don't get me wrong, the LokPilot decoders do have functions also. This is just specifically a function decoder. It doesn't drive the motor, and it's very inexpensive. It's under $30. ESU also makes, for smaller scale locomotives, for N scale locomotives, they make this thing called the LokPilot micro decoder, and it also comes in a sound version. They make a LokSound micro decoder. I guess that's over here on the right. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but these are tiny. These will go in any N scale locomotive, and I'll wager they probably can go in some Z scale locomotives. These things are very, very small. I have the dimensions here: 8x7 by 2.5 millimeters. Very small and very good decoders. And ESU also makes their L series for larger locomotives like Marklin 1 scale, LGB, etc. On the sound side, you have the LokSound V5 M4 MKL decoder. V5 means it's their 5th version, the fifth generation, if you will, of sound decoders. The M4 is ESU's designation for M4. Only Marklin can use the MFX terminology, but ESU calls M4 their equivalent for MFX, so they can actually tell you that it does work with the Marklin Central Station and the mobile station. And this MKL, this is something brand new. This is something that ESU started last year. The MKL represents Marklin, and what that means is, for people who have a central station and they want to use the full complement of 32 functions available, this decoder is the one you want, because this one will extend the capability of your of the decoder to go from 16 to the full 32 functions. Now, even their non-MKL decoders will do more than 16 functions. The problem is the standard that Marklin has set up to access functions past 16 is different than what DCC uses. So in order to accommodate people with central stations, of course there are a lot of Marklin central stations out there, ESU has designated their LokSound, and there's also a LokPilot version with the MKL designation, and that tells you that if you have a central station, you'll be able to access the full array of 32 different functions. If you have that many functions, obviously most of them are going to be sound. They also have a micro version, and again, I've got the dimensions there: 21 by 10 millimeters. That's less than half an inch wide, and these will fit in probably just about any locomotive that you got. Probably not Z, but probably in any N scale locomotive, and certainly if you have a very small Marklin locomotive that you don't think, or you've tried and you just can't shoehorn a full sound decoder, this one will definitely fit. And of course, ESU has an XL version of their sound decoder. So that covers the whole array of what both Marklin and ESU have to offer in their variety of decoders. As I told you before, I am kind of partial to ESU. I think they make a lot of really, really fine accessories to help not only make it easy, but to also make sure that you get good results from your installation. Very briefly, you have these 21-pin mounting plates. They have a small one here where you can solder right onto these little solder tabs here. And if you were to flip this over, I only have a picture of the top, but on the bottom you have all these solder tabs too. And the 21-pin decoder just snaps right on. So you solder all your wires to this plate and you snap the decoder on and you're in business. If you want to do it a little easier and you want a mounting plate that has all these wires on it already, this is a different version. And again, you just snap the decoder on here, and the wires that are already on the board, you just run them to your lights, your motor, your hot and your ground, your functions, your accessories, and you're ready to go. This third one down here is a somewhat unique board. This is used for what Marklin calls push-pull trains. This would be your TEE trains, your ICE trains. Marklin made some push-pull trains a few years ago where there was a locomotive at one end and a cab control car at the other, but the cab control car had a pickup shoe, and when you reverse direction, the pickup shoe and the control car would be the, quote, the lead pickup shoe, and that's where it would pull its power from. Similar to the TEE trains, if you remember the old 3070 or 3071, the Dutch RAM TEE trains. There was also a Delta version, 3471, I believe. And all the ICE trains, these all come with two pickup shoes, one at each end. So that when you reverse direction, whichever direction the train is going, that's the pickup shoe that is picking up the power from the track. And this board down here in the lower left, this handles everything. It has the relays to control the lights at both ends. If you have white lights and red lights at each end, this switches them over, switches over which pickup shoe is in control. And you can see here, it's got a 21-pin adapter. So you just wire the board up, connect the decoder, plug the decoder in, and you're ready to go. There's even connections on the back of this board, as there are on these other boards, for speakers. So you don't even have to wire the speaker. You can just plug the decoder, you wire the speakers to these boards, and then you just snap the decoder on. You don't have to wire the speaker to the decoder itself. Makes it very easy. Briefly, the ESU makes a very nice decoder tester here. If you want to test your decoders before you ever install them, there's this 8-pin plug here. There's a 21-pin adapter here on the left. It comes with a speaker. It comes with a motor. It comes with LEDs so you can test all your different functions. And it's great for testing decoders if you think you're having a problem, or if you want to test them before you install them in a locomotive. ESU makes a wide array of speakers here. My favorite is this one in the upper left. It's tiny. It's like, I think, 11 by 15 millimeters. It's the size and the type of speaker that's used in cell phones. It's got great performance and will fit just about anywhere. And as you can see, there are a lot of other larger speakers if you want more sound. But these little what they call sugar cube speakers are really fantastic. And ESU makes also their equivalent of the Marklin power packs. The larger one, which if you have enough room to fit in a locomotive, will hold the power for a good 2 or 3 seconds after you lose power. So they really do a good job. Have a picture of a relay here if you need to add a relay function. And down here in the lower right, there's a picture of the LokProgrammer device where you can actually program your decoders, and we're going to get to that right now. On the left side here, this shows you, it's a little overwhelming. I'll be the first to admit it's very overwhelming, but it shows you all the different things that you can change as far as the performance is concerned for in this case, the driving characteristics of your decoder. On the right side, it shows other aspects for the motor settings. You can change your speed curve. You can make it linear. You can make it exponential. There's all kinds of variety. You can even identify each individual point here, what speed you want, minimum and maximum speed, all kinds of things you can change. And the beauty of this is you can do it right from your PC, all with the LokProgrammer that ESU offers. How does this work? Very simply, right here, you hook up your computer to this connection here at the bottom, and you can hook up the decoder tester if you want here, and through your compute with your computer through the LokProgrammer, you can attach your decoder. There's a 21-pin decoder I just plugged on for you, and you're in business. You can program the decoder, you can program sounds, you can program functions, do anything you want to it before it ever goes in a locomotive. And in the event that you've already put it in a locomotive, you can hook up the decoder tester, the LokProgrammer, I mean, directly to your track. What you do is you take a separate piece of track, or if you will, a test track or a programming track, and again, from your computer through the LokProgrammer, you can then program, read from, or write back to the locomotive even after you've installed the decoder. This is just a great system, and I'll be the first to tell you, using the software can be a little bit intimidating at first, but once you get the hang of it, it just makes it so much easier than writing out a CV. As a matter of fact, if you take a look here, you see it shows you what the CVs are here for um, different types of operations here. You could write the CVs 3 and 4 and 66 here, and 54 and 55 here. You don't have to know any of that. You don't have to remember any of the CV numbers. You just go right through the software, through the LokProgrammer, and into the decoder, whether it's mounted on the decoder tester or already installed in a locomotive. I think it's just a really neat and easy system to use, especially if you don't have Marklin locomotives. Not everybody has only Marklin locomotives, but this will work with any locomotive, and makes it a lot easier to program, get the bugs out, get it running smoothly. I really like it. Why did I put this screen up here? Well, this shows how you program sounds. I put together this little array of sounds here to generate random station announcements. I sent it to ESU, and they thought it was really kind of cool. They wanted to know if they could use it, and I said, sure, why not? In the lower left here, there's a mapping, if you will, of the sounds for an electric locomotive and how they program. And the beauty of all this is, it's an open system. You can go in and you can make any changes you want. You don't like the sound of a bell or a steam chuff, or you want to put in somebody else's different motor sound. You want to change the from 0.2 of a second to 0.3 of a second, how it pauses when it's shifting. Any changes you want to make, they're at your disposal here. You can do whatever you want. It's a very open system. And here on the right side, I've shown you, if you want it just to assign functions, you can assign whatever you want to any of the functions. You can put in physical outputs, you can put in logical functions like acceleration and switching mode, and all kinds of different types of lighting arrangements, all kinds of things. And on the right side here, depending on which function button you want to assign to which sound slot, you just put it in there, and you can just assign whatever sounds you want to any button that you push. Maybe in a future talk, if I'm invited back, maybe we can go over some of the really fundamental aspects of programming sounds and working with the decoder programmer. Marklin has its own array of accessories. They have a very nice decoder tester. It has one distinct advantage over ESUs. If you notice here, these black strips here, this is where you would plug in a 1-scale locomotive decoder. The ESUs doesn't have that. At least the version they have out now doesn't. So that's very nice. And you can see here, it's got the whole array of different LEDs, so you can test different function mappings. It has a motor here, and I believe there's a speaker back there. So again, it is full featured as well. And Marklin has its own little programmer here to allow you to program sounds as well. I don't have that much experience with it. I don't know, but I also don't think that it's as flexible as ESU's. But Marklin does have sound projects that you can download from their website and to program different sound projects onto their decoders as well. Okay, almost done here. Lots of different parts, but all readily available to upgrade your locomotives. If you're putting in LEDs, you have to remember to use resistors. I use either a 330 ohm or 470 ohm resistor. drops the voltage from the 18 volts from the track to the 3 to 5 volts that LEDs require. Don't make the same mistake I did and just hook up a wire directly to an LED and expect it to work, or you'll get a little puff, and that's not good. You have to lower the voltage. Different types of screws available from Marklin for their motor shields. When you install a permanent magnet motor, typically the screws that were in there are too short, so you need different set of screws. The motor kits themselves come with longer screws for whichever motor you're putting in, but they are available separately if you happen to drop one and lose it. There's a special contact here for the older locomotives that use smoke, where you would separate the light. You don't want the light and the smoke to be on all the time, or when you turn one on, they both come on. This little device here lets you plug in a bulb, and you have the contact here for the smoke, and you can operate the function separately. Over here, we've got the Marklin bulb holders. If your bulbs are grounded to the chassis, you probably want to use this bulb holder and bulb, because that way the lights won't flicker when you're passing the DC current to bulbs that grounded to the chassis. You're going to get a flicker that most people find somewhat objectionable. So replacing the bulb with a two-pronged bulb and this bulb holder will solve that problem. LEDs, these are 3mm LEDs. I always have those on hand. Diodes to handle different lighting aspects. And of course you need, this is the type of solder that I use. I think I still have a spool of Radio Shack. Radio Shack's not around anymore, but their solder sure is. So that's what I use. Lots of different tools available. This is what I use. I use this 3M heat shrink tubing, 1/16 of an inch. I find is perfect for just about every aspect. Lots of little wire cutters and crimpers and wire strippers. Marklin has a very nice little tool set, the 70900. Over here on the right side, you'll see there are 3 nut drivers. You need those if you want to change tires on a steam locomotive. There are 3 different sizes there, and you have them all here in the Marklin toolkit. I love the WEA screwdrivers. If anybody's interested in getting a good, inexpensive soldering iron, Weller makes this WM120. You can get it on Amazon. It's under $50. I always have one by my side just in case. I have a fancier soldering station, I'll admit, but for many years I was using this WM120. It's got the perfect heat. It's got a pencil tip at the end of it, which is just perfect for soldering just about any aspect of the locomotive, and that tip is so tiny you can actually solder directly to a decoder if you're careful. I love it, and it's very, very reasonably priced at under $50. Other tools you see down here, you can get a fancier soldering station. You always want to have some type of a tester to test voltage or continuity. I also found this really cool set. Somebody told me about this of little tweezers. It just seems whenever I want tweezers, they're just too big, too thick, too straight, not bent enough. And this whole pack I think was under $20, and I think you get 8 or 9 of them. It's a good deal. And I also have a DC power supply, which if you want to practice and play with LEDs and not blow up too much stuff, this too is a very, very nice and very inexpensive tool to have in your array of devices or and tools in your tool chest. Okay, additional resources. There is lots and lots of information available from Marklin and other sources. You can go on Marklin's website directly and get exploded views and lists of parts and part numbers for hundreds and hundreds of different locomotives, probably over 1,000 locomotives. I happen to have some extra tools that I've accumulated, extra resources I've accumulated over the years. Back in I think the 1980s, Marklin came out with a CD that had a couple of hundred exploded views on it that made it very easy to access via PDF file. On the right side here, there's this book that I found somewhere along the line. It covered about 30 years worth of exploded views from Marklin, everything from the 1950s through 1980. So a lot of the stuff that's not available on Marklin's website, I have good reference to that. Marklin also came out with a variety of parts books for dealers. I've been fortunate to get a couple of those. These are actually incorporated in this this paperback book here. And if all else fails, I've downloaded here a couple. Here's a little picture of a couple of screens, my monitors that I have set up here, and each one of these little lines here you can see is a different, just another exploded view. So I have access to thousands and thousands of different exploded views. So if you're ever looking for a part and you need something, they're not all available, of course, but at least you know what to look for. So I borrowed this little quote here. You know, people ask me sometimes, "How do you know so much?" And I say, the only reason I know so much is because I've made so many mistakes, and I still make mistakes. So don't worry about getting started with this. You'll make mistakes, and you'll learn something from it. As Jason Statham says in the Mechanic, says, "Good judgment comes from experience, most of which comes from bad judgment," and that's very, very true. I've learned a lot by making mistakes. The pictures below here you see are some of my successes. Okay, Dutch locomotive here. You can see the speaker I put in here. You see how nicely the this mounting board attaches to the post where the mechanical reversing unit was on this locomotive. On this German 143, I was able to put two speakers in very nicely, and I put the mounting board flat on the base of the locomotive. Very recently, for a customer of mine in Massachusetts, I put, this is the tender from a Borsig, and there's not much room back there because you have this huge weight there, which you can't remove because otherwise there's really no weight to the tender at all. So I had to leave the weight in, but I was able to get in a decoder and a mounting plate and a speaker right here wedged between the decoder and the weight. And I even put in another relay. That Borsig, as many of you know, has two smoke units, and probably not enough power in the decoder to power two smoke units all the time. So this relay provides track power. And you know, if you're careful, you can squeeze it all in. You can see down here in the lower left, this little diesel locomotive where I was able to squeeze two larger speakers in. There's always room. These little diesel here, I think this is from a V212 locomotive. Again, I put the mounting plate there and the decoder, and I've put two speakers here under the top here. All you have to do is give it a try. I'm sure you can be very successful with anything. It just takes time and practice. That's it. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, or you want to join my mailing list, I'm available just about any time. I'd be happy to hear from you.